Jonah Layer has written this hit piece on me in the Wired magazine, claiming that this vaccine he was writing about doesn't, quote, calm the public. Well, I've got his quotes in the mainstream news article right here. Jab that could put a stop to stress without slowing us down, with a live virus that goes in and attacks the receptors. So we're going to do something tomorrow with him. Just be ready for it. We're writing a big article about it today to expose him. You know, this video has been one of our best sellers, and I'm excited because Global Warming, Emerging Science, and Understanding really details, by Dr. Michael-Coffman, who's on with us, the fraud of it. Great video to give people. That's available. But why I'm so excited about rescuing a broken America, why America is deeply divided, this is an olive branch to conservatives and liberals to show how they've been manipulated through divide and conquer. And Michael was telling me that liberals, mainline liberals that read this book, are really getting woken up by it and upset, and it's shifting their paradigm. Tell us about some of those testimonies and why the book's having such a big effect.
Well, one of the things that liberals do is they shut you down, anything that you might say, almost as soon as you say it. I have approached this book as being open-minded. I don't support Democrats any more than Republicans. You don't either, I know. But at the same time, I'm not pointing the finger at any one group. I'm just basically saying, well, this is what's happening, and we need to do something about it. And one of the things that it does, if you can get past the first couple pages, a liberal can get past the first couple pages without throwing it down on the floor, he will be, or she will be, hooked. Almost guaranteed. I've heard from enough of them now to realize if they're a bit open-minded, and the most liberals are, it's that small, 10 or 15% that are closed-minded. They've got the solutions of the world already figured out, and they're going to ram them down your throat regardless of what you think. Most of the liberals are not the progressives, hardcore progressives that are making up our government and so forth. And they will start to be able to see this. I mean, there's enough question in their mind now of what Obama's doing and so forth, and the failed policies that he's doing, and I take advantage of those throughout, that really starts to drive home the point. And
globalism is destroying our society.
It is. And now, for the first time probably, they can see it in this book. Again, if you're really well-versed in a particular area, you're going to find this book is still fairly shallow. But as far as reaching people who do not understand it, it basically does that and it connects all the dots, and they can see it for the first time.
I want to read a quote from the book. Show me the age and country where the rights and liberties of the people were placed on the sole chance of their rulers being good men without a consistent loss of liberty. I say that the loss of the dearest privilege has always followed with absolute certainty every such mad attempt. Patrick Henry. I mean, we know what happens when we give our freedoms up. We know. And now these people are so arrogant, they're coming out saying they're going to publicly drug the water supply to make us submit and give us shots to make us happy. I mean, holy mackerel, this is serious. It's very serious. And one of the things that I really leaned pretty heavily on was some writings of a psychiatrist, 40 years of experience in doing studies and so forth with a liberal mind. In fact, that's what this book is called. And basically, he says that these people are psychologically ill. And as a consequence, they cannot make a connection to reality. They are so far out in what they believe, that the belief is truth, that anything that connects it to reality is purely happen chance. And that's how they can come out and say, we're setting up world government, but you people are kooks, no world government exists. Or, yes, we're storing your naked body images, but we're not. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. It's all kinds of disconnects. If you really look at what they're doing in Congress and what their ideas are, like, really promoting Islam and so forth. Well, how can they promote Islam when the Islamic law and so forth is so abusive to women? There's a disconnect there, and yet they do it. Well, the globalists want to destroy the dominant culture of Christianity, real Christianity, not the fake Christianoid, and so they'll use anything that's from the outside to create divisions. Absolutely. You cannot basically take over or change a inherent cultural belief
without first tearing it down, and that's what they're in the process of doing it. And they're deconstructing the American way and putting something else in its place. And it's based on the writings and so forth of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a Frenchman in the 1800s, that led to the French Revolution and led to the beheading of many, many thousands of Frenchmen.
And your book talks about that. Long segment coming up. When we come back, let's talk about that, because Dr. Blaylock brought up the French Revolution, and that's really where a lot of this got formed. We'll talk about what these people plan to do. It's mass killing, of course. Okay, here's GCNlive.com, an Aaron Dykes article that just came out. It's also at Infowars.com, but it's up at GCNlive.com. Army plans DNA blasting vaccines for mass inoculations during times of emergencies. They fire a laser into your flesh that embeds the nanotech viruses. They've taken them and made it synthetic viruses. You cannot make this stuff up. He has links directly to the Army, and it will reprogram the troops' brains. I mean, literally, they hold you down, laser you. It's over. I mean, we're in the 21st century. It's Buck Rogers, and the control freaks are coming. And it's gotten so crazy, it's hard for me to even believe. We had Dr. Russell Blaylock, top brain surgeon, on yesterday, and he said in his own words, he said, it's worse than any nightmare science fiction. And he read document after document from the federal government where they admitted the fluoride gives us cancer and brain damage, where their own scientists say take it out. I mean, I love everybody. I love the children. I love our communities. And these eugenicists have admitted the global warming tax is to shut down our industrial society so we collapse and are under government control. And only Europe, the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are under this. 160 plus other countries, China, India, and others, they have zero carbon taxes coming in. All of our jobs that we have left will leave. This is the stated program. It's the stated program of enslavement and bondage and poverty. And that's why this book is so important. Again, it's available at Infowars.com. For those in America that still read, get it. Give it to people you know. It's so well written. I love things that just boil everything down. It's a full spectrum shotgun blast of info. Well written, lots of quotes, lots of documents, lots of graphs. This is the kind of book I like, because it's similar to a film. And, of course, Global Warming, Emerging Science Understanding, also available at Infowars.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139. And Endgame Blueprint for Global Enslavement covers all of this. Going back to Dr. Michael-Coffman, Doc, continuing, you know, everybody I talk to who's really studied history understands that eugenics began 2,300 years ago with Plato, and he said, we, the hybrids, the elite, must kill everyone in Greece who's poor. And wars aren't killing them fast enough. And we need to train them not to fight back against us, so we'll give them sports as a way to be the new hero. We got to kill these people. You can read the quotes in Plato's Republic. And then if you study history, you see it come back and be picked up in the 1760s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And, of course, then they put Napoleon after that. It was a Rothschild takeover. They were going to have a 10-day-a-week work week. They were going to abolish the family. This is mainline history. They were talking about forced drugging people. They were saying they wanted to kill 80%. That number comes from the French Revolution. Kill 80% of the public. And so without me even prompting it, we talked about it yesterday, here's Michael-Coffman telling you the same thing. Go over the French Revolution. It was the opposite of what our revolution was. And George Washington figured that out when he was president and spoke out against it. And the French then tried the Illuminati. He wrote letters about it. He wrote letters about them trying to overthrow the United States. And so ever since then, it is a group of sages or people that understand how humans operate who want to end the regular human order and replace it with their new world order. Doctor, go over it.
Absolutely. It is one of those heinous things that when you think about it, where you have people who are at the very top. Now, the vast majority of troops out there trying to implement this agenda don't really fully understand what they're doing. But the key people behind it, like occurred in the French Revolution, which was orchestrated by the Illuminati and the Jacobean Society and so forth, they basically used the Rousseau model. What the Rousseau model basically means the state is in control over the individual, or sovereign over the individual, and everything stems from that. Once they did that, anybody who disagreed with them had their head cut off, and it was one of the most bloody revolutions in history of the period. Both Jefferson and Patrick Henry were excited about the French Revolution until they went over there and actually saw what they were doing. It had nothing in comparison to the American Revolution.
And one of them almost got killed. Some of our founding fathers got locked up.
Actually, Patrick Henry basically was scheduled to have his head lopped off if it wasn't for the intervention of Washington and the request to have him sent home, and Jefferson himself intervened. Otherwise, he would have been beheaded for all the outrageous, not really outrageous to us, but all that he was saying against the French Revolution.
And they were going to have a new calendar. They were going to end the family. The good news is it stalled out and failed.
It stalled out and failed, although we still have the socialist government that Rousseau is based upon installed in France. It just hasn't evolved.
That's right. Karl Marx and others, they were plagiarizing what the Luciferians, and by the way, that's mainline history, that the Illuminati out of Germany came over to France. That's what the famous Magic Flute symphonies all about. And then, of course, they killed that composer when he did it. That was his last piece. I mean, this is, for those that haven't read mainline history, I mean, these were human-sacrificing, devil-worshipping mass murderers.
They really were, and of course that's been obliterated. If you look at the history books today that you might get in high school or college, of course that will not be in there. But if you look at some of the older history books, the ones that you can still get and buy, you will find a more accurate, just like Nazi Germany. If you look at Nazi Germany history in the current textbooks and so forth, you won't find anything about the religious beliefs of Hitler, the theosophical beliefs of Hitler, and what led him to believe that the Jews were a bad race and had to be eliminated. All of that stuff is now sanitized out of our history books. But if you go back to the more 100 years ago or even 50 years ago history books, what you will find is really what the truth is in that particular period of time. These people are evil. They're evil down to the very core. I think your description of them as being Luciferian is right on target.
Well, and then you look at eugenics in England in the 1850s. Yes. That then got set up in the U.S., and Hitler got his ideas from that, and it's the very same crowd.
It's the very same crowd. And it's still in the United Nations. It's still boiling just below the surface. You don't see it named as that anymore, but it's still there. The depopulation of the world, the whole effort is eugenics.
Well, now more and more they're coming out in the open and calling for only having one child, having the state take over children. Let's talk more about what's in your book.